York, Amsterdam, Berlin, Sydney, Toronto, not as a tourist on a package deal. Not someone checking boxes on a bucket list. As someone genuinely trying to answer a question that most travel content refuses to ask seriously, what actually makes a country worth living in? Not worth photographing, not worth posting, worth actually being in day after day as a human being with needs and feelings and a limited amount of money and time. I gave each of those 7 countries real time, real effort, real attention, and I came back with a framework I was confident in. Then I landed in Malaysia for the first time and made a video, and 300,000 of you showed up in my comments and told me the same thing. Nicely, patiently, with specific coordinates. You got the basic package, you haven't seen Malaysia. So I came back, not to Kuala Lumpur, not to the same streets, back to East Malaysia, back to Borneo, back to the places you name by location, by detail, by personal experience, in comment after comment after comment. Sabah, Sarawak, Pahang, the islands nobody told you about, and what I found there completely rewrote everything I thought this country was. Here's the honest truth about my first Malaysia video. I thought it was solid. I thought I understood what I was talking about. I was wrong, because the Malaysia I filmed the first time, the skyline, the street food, the trains, the warmth of the people in the city, that wasn't Malaysia. That was the lobby. What's behind it? The ancient forest, the underground chambers that swallow light, the island where 2 oceans collide, the islands that rival the Maldives at a fraction of the price. That is a different country entirely. A country sitting on some of the most extraordinary natural geography on this planet. And almost nobody outside Malaysia knows it's there until my comment section told me, I need to say this before we go any further. I'm not saying any of this for the algorithm. I'm not exaggerating for retention. Every fact in this video is verified and real. Every location is accessible right now. I'm going to give you the specific numbers, the distances, the sizes, the ages, because the facts are extraordinary enough on their own. They don't need my commentary to be impressive. They just need someone to say them out loud. So let's go. Before I show you what Malaysia showed me on this second visit, I need to take you back to what 7 Western countries built inside me, because the contrast is the story, and the contrast only lands if you understand what I was carrying when I arrived. London gave me history so dense and so overwhelming it almost stopped feeling human. Westminster, the Tower, the British Museum, extraordinary. But here's the thing, nobody puts in the brochure about London. The city charges you for existing in it. Every meal, every tube journey, every coffee, every time you stand somewhere and breathe London air, your wallet notices. A budget hotel in Zone 4 with a view of a car park costs what a direct city view would cost you in a country like Malaysia. And the warmth? Somewhere between polite and non-existent. London is magnificent. But London knows it's magnificent, and it prices accordingly. Paris convinced the entire world it is the standard by which all other cities should be judged. And then Paris meets you at the door with an expression that suggests you haven't quite earned the right to be there. I have eaten at celebrated restaurants in Paris. I have stood in front of art that stopped my breathing. I have walked along the Seine at the hour when the light does something that cameras cannot fully explain. And I still left Paris feeling like a visitor in a city that preferred its idea of itself to the reality of whoever was standing in it. I felt more personal warmth from a self-checkout machine. New York, New York taught me that energy and exhaustion are the same thing. It just depends on the hour. The city moves like it's always late for something, and eventually you realize it's always late because it can never quite catch up to its own ambitions. The best version of New York is extraordinary. The average version is survival. Amsterdam, Berlin, Sydney, Toronto. Amsterdam freedom wrapped in a tourist trap so perfected that the authentic city underneath had nearly suffocated. Berlin heavy, cerebral, carrying a weight you feel in the architecture and in the silences between conversations. Unforgettable, exhausting. Sydney genuinely beautiful, genuinely expensive, and so geographically isolated that the isolation eventually becomes a character in your experience. Toronto diverse, polite, functional, and cold in ways that had nothing to do with the weather. 7 countries, 7 genuinely extraordinary places. And after all of them, I sat in airport lounges with a feeling I couldn't name. The feeling that the travel experience I was having was somehow less than the travel experience I had imagined was possible. Something was missing. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know a country could choose to be something different, not just more affordable, not just warmer in temperature, but genuinely warmer as a decision. Then I came to Malaysia for the second time, and your comment section showed me what that actually means. Before I take you through each place, I want to read some of the comments that were sent to me here, because this video doesn't exist without these people. At Huzaifa Habdul told me directly, okay, it seems like you got the basic Malaysia package, let's dive deeper. And then they gave me a list. Specific, detailed, accurate. Tip of Borneo, Kudat, Bohey Dulang, Semporna, Maliau Basin, Langanan Waterfall in Porin. At Aya 976 told me to visit East Malaysia, Sabah, and Sarawak during my next trip. At Damiri Tambuku 4807 told me some tourists come here, live with locals, exhaust their entire visa limit, and still don't want to leave. At Samsulando, in 3 words, gave me one of the most accurate travel descriptions I've ever read. Rawa Island, Malaysia's Maldives. And at the Phuket said, people talk about Perhentian and Tioman, but miss Pulau Rawa and Pulau Mabel. That's the best spot for me. These are not influencers with sponsorship deals. These are people who know their country and are tired of watching outsiders miss the best of it. So we went Sabah, Tip of Borneo, Kudat. 215 kilometers from Kota Kinabalu. 3.5 hours by road through the Kudat Peninsula. At the end of that drive, Tanjung Simpang Mengayau, the northernmost tip of Borneo, the point where the South China Sea and the Sulu Sea meet. 2 of the world's most significant bodies of water, converging at a single strip of land where you can stand and feel the wind from both directions at the same time. Here's a fact that matters right now in 2025. This site was closed for 3 years from January 2022 for major renovations under Malaysia's 12th National Plan. It reopened to the public in May 2025 with a brand new visitor information center and upgraded facilities. The world hasn't caught up yet. I was standing at a geographically extraordinary location with almost no crowds. The name itself tells you the history. Tanjung Simpang Mengayau means wandering crossroads in the language of the Rungus people, the indigenous community of Kudat. And this promontory wasn't just a geographical landmark. For centuries, it was a watchtower. The Rungus people stood here to watch for pirates, the Moro pirates, who sailed through these exact waters in the 1800s. There were battles here. People defended this piece of land with their lives. You stand at the edge, looking at the point where 2 oceans meet, and the history of the place arrives slowly, not from a museum, Not from a sign, but from the feeling of the ground under your feet and the water arguing with itself below you. I stood there longer than I planned because some places make you stop thinking. This is one of them. Sabah, Bohey Dulang Island, Semporna, 23 kilometers from Semporna, 35 minutes by speedboat. Bohey Dulang is part of the unshakeable Marine Park, gazetted and protected by the Sabah government in 2004. The island sits at the rim of an ancient, extinct volcanic crater. The crater is now a lagoon 25 meters deep, filled with aqua-colored seawater, ringed by coral reef on its southern side. The island itself has a peak of 353 meters. The hike to the top is approximately 800 meters of trail rated moderate, takes between 30 and 55 minutes depending on your pace and the weather. You need proper shoes, not sandals, proper shoes. They check at the entrance and there are rentals available for RM5 if you don't have them. Now here is why you do it. When you reach the summit, the entire crater lagoon opens below you. The islands of Bojaya, Bohey Dulang, and Tetagan form a ring around the water. The coral reef is visible from the top long stretches of it, the colors shifting from deep blue to turquoise to pale green depending on the depth. On a clear day, you can see the shoreline of Semporna town. The sea gypsies, the Bajau Laut people live on the water around these islands. Their boats are their homes. Their children grow up on the sea. You look down from the summit of a volcanic island at a coral-ringed lagoon with a community of people who have lived on the water for generations scattered across the frame below you. No photographer constructs this. It just exists. My viewer said pan-oceanic view. They were being modest. Sabah, Maliau Basin. Let me tell you how the Maliau Basin was discovered. 1947. A pilot was flying over the interior of Sabah and nearly crashed into a wall of mist-shrouded cliffs he hadn't seen coming. He pulled up, survived. I looked back and saw a saucer-shaped basin of unbroken rainforest surrounded by an escarpment rising to 1,675 meters. A place that had never been inhabited by humans, a place that large portions of which to this day have never been visited by anyone. 50% of the Maliau Basin remains unexplored. The full area is 588 square kilometers, roughly the same size as Singapore. The basin contains 12 different types of forest ecosystems, from lowland dipterocarp forests to rare montane heath forests, changing composition as altitude increases. It is home to over 1,800 species of vegetation, including 6 species of carnivorous pitcher plants and more than 80 species of rare and endemic orchids. Wildlife spotted here includes pygmy elephants, sun bears, civets, leopard cats, gibbons, hornbills, over 270 species of birds, and the pangolin. The highlight of any trek is the 7-tiered Maliau Falls, a waterfall system accessible only after days of jungle trekking. This is not a day trip. Getting here requires a 4WD. The journey from Kota Kinabalu alone takes 6 to 8 hours, depending on weather. You need prior permission from Yayasan Sabah. All tours must be arranged through licensed operators with guides. My viewer warned me, you need a 4WD to get in. What they didn't tell me, and what no one can fully prepare you for, is that the moment you cross into Maliau Basin, the noise of the modern world doesn't just quiet down, it disappears entirely. There is a difference between quiet and silent. Maliau Basin is silent in the way that places untouched by human activity for millions of years are silent. Your presence feels like a privilege. Your absence when you leave probably goes unnoticed by everything living there. And somehow that is the most humbling thing I have experienced in all of this trip. Sarawak, Mulu Caves, my viewer at Bayohako sent me here. Multiple others echoed it. Gunung Mulu National Park, Sarawak, Malaysian Borneo, UNESCO World Heritage Site since the year 2000. The park covers 52,864 hectares and contains 295 kilometers of explored cave passages. Let me give you the numbers that matter. The Sarawak Chamber, the single largest cave chamber on Earth, is 600 meters long, 415 meters wide, and 80 meters high. Volume 12 million cubic meters. Unsupported roof span 300 meters. To put that in terms your brain can process, Boeing 747 aircraft lined up tip to tail would fit inside it over and over again. The largest cave chamber on Earth, not in Southeast Asia, on Earth. And then there is the Deer Cave. Every evening between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m., between 2.5 million and 3 million bats from 12 different species stream out of Deer Cave in a column that spirals and bends and moves across the evening sky. 12 bat species in a single cave, more than any other cave in the world. The park guide told visitors if you stay completely silent as they pass overhead, you can hear the sound of their wings. Like distant applause. The bat exodus doesn't happen on rainy evenings. The bats stay inside when it rains heavily. So there is no guarantee, and that is exactly what makes it extraordinary when it happens. You wait, you watch the cave mouth, silence, then movement, a column, growing, spreading, bending as one organism through the last light of the day. I have seen things on this trip that cameras struggle with. This is the one that cameras fail completely. Pahang, Chamang, Waterfalls, and Kendundong. My viewer at Kairu Lenoir 5212 gave me 2 specific locations with exact directions. Not go see some waterfalls, specific coordinates, specific roads, real local knowledge. Chamang Waterfalls in Benting, 1.5 hours from Kuala Lumpur through the Titiwangsa mountain range. Kendundong Waterfalls near Gotong Jaya, 12 kilometers from the Gotong roundabout. Both are accessible by road. Both are places that Malaysian families go to on weekends, not destinations that appear in international travel magazines. The drive through the Titiwangsa range on the way to Chamang is worth the trip before you even arrive. Mountain road, dense forest on both sides, the temperature drops as you climb. 2 hours earlier, I was in the heat of Kuala Lumpur city. Now I'm on a mountain road at a different altitude and the windows are down and it doesn't feel like the same country. Chamang hits you with sound before it hits you with sight. The volume of the water reaches you through the trees before the falls come into view. And then it does, and the cold of the air changes around you immediately. The water is cold in the way that jungle water fed by mountain streams is always cold. The kind of cold that earns a physical reaction. Kendundong is quieter, more removed from the main road. The forest around it feels less trafficked. Both of these places cost nothing to access. Both were given to me by a viewer who wanted me to see what locals actually visit. That gap between what locals know and what the international travel industry promotes is one of the most important stories in Malaysian travel right now. Taman Negara, one of the oldest rainforests on Earth, 130 million years old. Let me put that number in context before we go any further. The Amazon rainforest, roughly 55 million years old. The forests of Central Africa, approximately 100 million years. Taman Negara estimated at 130 million years old. It existed before the dinosaurs went extinct. It watched them leave. The park covers 4,343 square kilometers across 3 Malaysian states, Pahang, Kelantan, and Terengganu. It is home to more than 10,000 plant species, 675 bird species, 270 reptile species, 200 mammals, including the Malayan tiger, Asian elephants, clouded leopards, and tapirs. The canopy walkway inside the park stretches 500 meters, one of the longest canopy walkways in the world, built 50 meters above the forest floor at tree height. From the walkway, you are level with branches that have been growing longer than most countries have existed. Night walks inside the park operate on a completely different sensory frequency. The jungle sounds like something that has been running the same program for 130 million years without interruption. And you are just a very recent, very temporary addition to the ecosystem. From Kuala Lumpur to Taman Negara is approximately 3 to 4 hours by bus to Jerantut, followed by a 2-5-hour riverboat journey upstream to the park entrance. The riverboat journey alone is worth the trip. Watching the city disappear into the distance, the river is narrowing, the forest is closing in from both sides. The moment your mobile signal drops completely is the moment the park actually begins. The islands, Pulau Rawa, Pulau Mabul, Perhentian, T. Oman. My viewer at Samsulando called it Malaysia's Maldives. Let me give you the facts so you can judge the comparison yourself. Pulau Rawa Johor, 16 kilometers off the coast of Mersing, Johor. 30 minutes by speedboat from Mersing Jetty, owned by the family of the Sultan of Johor. It has been protected as a marine sanctuary under the Sultan Iskandar Marine Park since 2013. The island is approximately 1 kilometer long. Fine white powdery sand, coral reefs are immediately accessible from the shoreline. Marine life in the protected waters includes clownfish, sea turtles, blacktip reef sharks, blue-spotted stingrays, and schools of barracuda. The dive operator on the island, a PADI 5-star center, describes it as the best place to learn to dive in Southeast Asia. The island is private enough that there are only 2 resorts on it, no roads, a few walkways, a hilltop trail that gives you a panoramic view of the surrounding water. People compare it to the Maldives. The Maldives charges you $500 per night and beyond for the privilege. Pulau Rawa does not. Pulau Mabul Sabah, 30 minutes by speedboat from Semporna. One of the world's premier muck diving destinations, a specific and technical category of diving where divers search for rare small species in shallow, sandy, or weedy environments. Nudibranchs, Rhinopeus scorpionfish, one of the rarest fish sought by underwater photographers globally. Crocodile fish, mantis shrimp, sea turtles, blue-spotted stingrays. Mabul is also the nearest island to Sipadan, the famous dive site once described by Jacques Cousteau as a piece of art, and now strictly protected, with only 120 dive permits issued per day. The diving world knows Mabul. The rest of the travel world largely doesn't. My viewer told me about this before most travel platforms did. Perhentian Islands and Pulau Tioman complete the picture, both well regarded, both accessible from the peninsula, both offering the kind of island experience that costs 3 to 4 times more in popular destinations elsewhere in the world. The gap between what these islands offer and what the world charges elsewhere, that gap is the story of Malaysian travel in 2025. I want to tell you about something that happened in Semporna before I reached Bohey Dulang, and I want to tell it exactly as it happened. because the exact version is the one that matters. I arrived at the public jetty early, too early. The boat to the island wasn't ready. The guide wasn't there yet. I sat down at a small food stall near the jetty, ordered tea, didn't say much. A woman running the stall, I never got her name, saw me checking my phone, looking at the boat, clearly unsure how the morning was going to work. She didn't ask if I needed help. She didn't wait for me to flag her down. She walked over, sat across from me at the plastic table, the same kind of plastic table I had first sat at in KL on my first trip, and said, "You want to go to the island? Don't worry, I know the boat captain. He will come." And then she just started talking about Semporna, about the sea, about how her father was a fisherman and had worked these waters his whole life, about how her children now go to university in Kota Kinabalu, about how the tourists who come here are mostly Malaysians from the city, and how she thinks it's good that they come because too many Malaysians, she said, have never seen their own country. 20 minutes passed. The boat captain arrived. She stood up, pointed at him, said, "That's him, go, enjoy." And she went back to her stall. No transaction, no tip requested, no reason to sit down with me except that I was there and she could. 7 Western countries. I can count on one hand the moments that felt like that. Malaysia produces them every single day. And I don't think it is an accident. I think it is a choice embedded so deeply in the culture, it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It just feels like what you do when someone is sitting at your stall and looks a little lost. Here is the question this trip forced me to sit with. And I don't have a complete answer. I want to be honest about that. Why does Malaysia have all of this and the world still doesn't fully know? A cave chamber that is the largest on Earth. A rainforest that survived for 130 million years. A point where 2 oceans collide. Islands that match the Maldives in beauty without matching the Maldives in price. A basin of jungle so remote that 50% of it has never been explored. And people who sit down with strangers at plastic tables and talk about their fathers and their children and the sea. Why does this exist in such near silence on the global travel stage? I think the answer is simple, and it's actually one of the most beautiful things about Malaysia. Malaysia never needed the world's approval to be what it is. It wasn't designed for a travel algorithm. It wasn't packaged for an international audience. The Tip of Borneo was significant to the Rungus people long before any bronze globe was erected there. The bats have been exiting Deer Cave at dusk for thousands of years, whether or not there was a viewing platform to watch from. Taman Negara was 130 million years old before the national park legislation was passed in 1938. These places did not become extraordinary because of tourism. They were already extraordinary. Tourism slowly, unevenly, incompletely is just beginning to catch up. And here's what 7 Western countries showed me in contrast. Each of those countries knew exactly how impressive it was. They had built industries around that knowledge, infrastructure around it, pricing around it, attitudes around it. And in the process of becoming so thoroughly aware of their own value, something essential had quietly been crowded out. The warmth between strangers had become unusual enough to feel remarkable when it occasionally appeared. The food had become a status signal as much as a meal. The cities had become so expensive that ordinary life required constant financial calculation. Malaysia showed me something different. A country that chose, whether by design or by character or by both, to keep warmth as its default setting. A country that feeds you extraordinarily for almost nothing and expects nothing more from you than that you show up hungry and open. A country where a woman at a jetty stall tells a stranger not to worry because she knows the boat captain. Not because it benefits her, because it's just what you do. That is not a small thing. In a world that charges you for existing in it, a country that still consistently chooses warmth over transaction, that is one of the most radical things I have encountered while traveling. And I still don't fully understand how it sustains itself, which means I have to keep coming back until I do. Quick pause here. If this video is showing you something you didn't know existed, hit like. For the Malaysians in the comment section who spent their time sending me to these specific places with specific directions, they deserve for more people to hear what they had to say. A like tells YouTube this content is worth showing to more people. That's all it does. It costs you nothing. Hit it and keep watching. To every Malaysian watching this, from Sabah, from Sarawak, from Pahang, from Johor, from wherever you are, you built this video. Your comments were the itinerary. Your country did the rest. I owe you an honest acknowledgement. My first video scratched the surface. This one goes deeper, and I still haven't seen everything, which means there will be a third. If you made it to the end of this video, comment Borneo below. I want to know who stayed the full journey. And if you know someone who thinks they have already seen Malaysia, send them this video. Because if this trip taught me anything, it is that seeing Malaysia and seeing Malaysia are two completely different experiences. The first is what most visitors do. The second is what your comment section made possible. Subscribe. There is more coming. Malaysia Boleh.